Hello, I am Dawn Westmoreland, hailing from Asheville, North Carolina, the beautiful Blue Ridge Mountains. I've lived here for over 18 years, and I tell you, we're getting bigger and bigger in this area. I'm also coming from WPVM FM LP 103.7, the voice of Asheville. My show is about safe and respectful work environments. And today I want to dedicate it to employees because there is not enough people standing up for employees. Employees are the heartbeat of a company, the backbone of a company, and they deserve better. So my show is aired every week. It's on Tuesdays at 9 a.m. or whenever you stream it. So good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. It's so nice for you to be with me. I'm going to talk about some insights and some advice that I have given clients that are dealing with workplace harassment. And I'll get into that a little bit more. It's a really big area because you wonder, is this about bullying? Is this about discrimination? What's the difference? Well, I'm going to get into it. And this is deriving from my workbook, which has been out there for a while, and it's been praised by employment attorneys. It's been praised by behavior consultants, coaches, business coaches, all kinds of mental health professionals. So I'm really honored by it. And it's also been very helpful to people who have reached out to me for help. So with that, let me get going. One of the first things that if you're facing any kind of, we'll just call it harassment at this time in the workplace, if you're facing any kind of harassment, you've got to have some courage. Let me get into that when I say courage. Okay. I like to preface that with it is never weak to leave a toxic work environment if that is the best thing for you. Because you do have all kinds of choices that you can make. You can reach out and hold people accountable. And sometimes that sounds easier than it is. But in reality, if you have a lot on your plate, maybe you're taking care of an elderly parent and you're trying to work and you're just beyond yourself tired. Sometimes the right thing is just saying, okay, enough of this toxic work environment. I am going to move on. That is courage in itself, make it a decision. So before you can stand up to somebody, you really do have to have that courage, as I mentioned. And I love to talk about the biblical story, of, the shepherd who stands up to the giant, Goliath, and he gets mocked. The giant mocks him, and then he takes a sling and he hits the giant and he kills him. See, back in that day, the shepherds had to protect the sheep because that was their livelihood. I mean, that was meat, that was, the fur, the wool and such. So when you think that, oh my goodness, it's me against the world, or me against a big company, or me against a big supervisor or CEO, just remember it can be done. Now, one of the things that I like to offer people is a pledge. And I'm going to read this pledge. This is a pledge to yourself. And it really is just a moral pledge. It's not, a commitment or anything legal. It's just a pledge for yourself. So I'm going to read it to you. Empowerment pledge to yourself. Today's date, you would put today's date, forevermore, I hereby pledge to myself I will no longer accept bullying or discrimination in my life and in my workplace. I have the right to work in a safe and respectful work environment. I promise to do my best in making decisions that empower me. I value my work ethics and how I am treated in the workplace. I promise to help myself by taking care of my physical and mental health. Understand I cannot change other people, but I can change myself. Properly document workplace incidences involving bullying or discrimination. Consider the merit of moving to a different job if needed. Hold my antagonist accountable if willing and possible through court or the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission or other resources. Respect and honor my feelings. They are valid. Know that I'm a worthy person deserving to work in a safe and respectful work environment. Protect myself when treated unacceptable or inappropriately. Team up with professionals such as employment attorney or mental health professional if needed. Then you would go ahead and sign that. It's just for yourself. And you could even verbally sign it, if you know what I mean. So I told you about the story about David and Goliath the shepherd and David standing up to the giant. So I always love to share my story really quickly. I never saw myself this happening, but 10 years ago, I was working for the second largest federal agency in the United States. And I had a background in HR, had probably about 22 years at the time, but I stepped out of HR for a while to work at a different administrative job. So as I walked into the ladies' bathroom, I see about 4 or 5 women approach me. They're coming up and they're all nervous and such. And I sense that they want to talk to me. Sure enough, they do. And so I listened to them and they said, Dawn, you've worked in HR a long time. Isn't it illegal? Isn't nepotism illegal? Of course, they didn't say it like that. Nepotism is, hiring, family and friends hiring, family and friends, which is illegal in the government and in other places, not in the civilian sector. And so I said, yes, it is. And I remember we watched at times people get hired that or promoted within the organization that had one person, for example, had a GED, and absolutely nothing wrong with a GED. I commend anybody who completes school. And, sometimes people have to get a GED for different reasons. In this case, this woman had a GED and she got promoted to a $90,000 a year job. That's a lot of money in our area, Nashville, North Carolina, even for a government job. And when we found out later on, a bunch of us that worked there, that she had a GED, and here we have other people like myself included with advanced degrees, or we had the experience, or we had the training experience and the college degrees. So we saw that happen and we knew we had to do something about it. The only thing is I need to take out we and substitute it for me. The ladies asked me, what are you going to do about it, Dawn? I shook my head. I knew what I was getting into. I was in the Air Force 20 years. I've also been retired 18 years now. And I knew that once I did something, I couldn't back down. And I knew what I was getting into. I was going to start up a hornet's nest, and I sure did. So I reached out to the Office of Special Counsel in Washington, D.C., and that's the federal agency that investigates prohibited personnel practices. That's a mouthful. And anyway, it led to retaliation. And I hate to say, I'm a disabled veteran and I don't like to label myself at all. And I needed a reasonable accommodation to do my work. I actually needed special screens and, I had complications with an autoimmune disorder. So I needed some extra things. So I was denied that reasonable accommodation. And when I was denied that reasonable accommodation, I could not do my work. And that was one of the ways to punish me. So I knew that I had to push through no matter what. So one of the things that a lot of people have a problem with, and even I've had this problem, is resistance. And we can only conquer it if we yield to it. And the resistance is, oh my God, can I really do this? Can I stand up to somebody? Can I speak my mind? Can I report somebody for doing something unethical, illegal, whatever? So I like to use the C words, and that's confidence and courage. And I'm the first to tell people, we're not born with it. I did not have confidence as a younger person, and I certainly didn't have courage. It's through adversity that people learn about courage, and they also gain confidence. And that's how they find their strengths. And I also like to say too that, during these adverse times, sometimes we find that our gifts come in ugly wrapping paper. Many years ago, I was in a relationship with an alcoholic, and the alcoholic had become just out of control. And I knew I had to leave. I had to leave, or I was going to be toast. I knew that. It was too many close calls of where I couldn't get away when he blacked out. And I love sharing this story. I went to open AA meeting where you can go, even if you're not the alcoholic. And that's where I met this scruffy man and all his friends. And they were laughing and cutting up. And we're in Mexico Beach at the time. And so I ran out. I was just so sick, mentally sick. They say sometimes the person who has to deal with alcohol can be sicker than the alcoholic. And that was the case in my case. So I couldn't handle it. I grabbed my purse and ran as fast as I could out the door and shut the door. And as soon as I did, I realized I was in the broom closet, a big old janitorial broom closet. And I just started crying. Not only was I devastated that I was going there to get help, at this open AA meeting, because I didn't know anything about it. I'm in the friggin' broom closet, smelling all the fumes and the cleaning and stuff. And, I cried for a minute, and then I heard this in my head, you need to be in that meeting. And I'm like, oh, I don't want to go to that meeting. But I did. I went back to that meeting. And one of the most scruffiest men there said to me, I'd like you to follow me in your vehicle, and I want you to meet my wife afterwards. And of course, you can pull off anytime if you don't feel comfortable or right. So at the time, I did not know that all 6, 7 of these men, they're all older men, they were all sober. They had been sober for 25, 30 years. They were happy. They were happy because they were healthy. And here I'm the sick one. So I ended up following this man to his house thinking we're going to go to a trailer park. And we end up at this multi-million-dollar home. And when I pulled up, I just broke down and cried because I realized I found out later, this retired Army helicopter pilot and his wife, who was a well-to-do author, they chose to live on the beach. And people don't drive nice vehicles on the beach, or they're crazy, because I grew up in Florida and I know about salt and rust. So this man helped me, and he was my gift in ugly wrapping paper to say, and it's taught me a very valuable lesson. Don't judge by the book by its cover, because that man, through him, I learned about personal power, and I learned to have the choice. And you also have the choice too, employees. You can stay or you can hold them accountable. One of the things I like to tell people is be your own HR person. And you might be saying, what? I've never worked a day in HR, but I think it's important. It would be just like investing your money with an investor. Wouldn't you want to know enough about it to know that it's being done right? So it's important to check out work policies and laws. Everything is online. Just go to credible sources. You can look up employment laws. You can go to the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, eeoc.gov, and you can find out more about, especially discrimination, which is illegal. We'll get into that in a minute. One thing I always like to emphasize is it can really make you upset or really mad that somebody's mistreated you. And I certainly have had angry feelings that people have mistreated me. But I tell you, try not to hate anyone, hold them accountable, but be as classy as possible, because hatred and anger and the victimhood is low energy. And I say that because I learned that as when I was getting certified as a life coach about 8, 9 years ago. That's really, really low energy. So let's get into bullying. Okay, it's so easy to get this confused. Bullying is not illegal in the workplace, okay? Bullying could be something like a coworker purposely doesn't tell you the boss said come to a meeting or something like that, or you're ignored, or you're picked on or something like that. There's probably 1,000 different things out there. At the current time, the US has no laws, although there's some great people out there that are trying to get laws passed about bullying. That hasn't happened yet. Now, if you're being bullied, you can report it and you can ask for help. One of the things that can help at times, if both sides are willing to work on it, is mediation. And mediation is where you have a facilitator and you try to find common ground. And I am a community volunteer mediator here in Asheville, North Carolina. I have seen it firsthand where two people couldn't look at each other. And in the end, they were able to meet in the middle, and that really worked. So let me tell you what you can do. You have a choice. You know, every place has different policies. They may say, go to your HR person, go to your supervisor. I say, always put it in writing and email. That's my greatest strength. And I'll jump ahead and say I had a very good outcome because I did everything by documentation. So when my friends and family, and yes, they do call me, and some of them consistently, asking for guidance. And I tell them, you document everything by email, sending emails to and from. Even if somebody comes and talks to you, still send a clarification email out so you have an email trail. And most important, do not email at home. You never know who's watching your email. First of all, you don't own it. You don't own the computer or anything like that. So I always say, when you send an email that's having to do with your harassment case, whatever's going on at work, send it, print it, take it home. Seriously. You never want to let the left hand know what the right hand's doing. What I mean by that is, you know, if somebody is watching your email trails, they're going to see, even if you blank copy it, people, oh, I blank copied. They can't say, oh, yes, they can. IT people can see everything. So absolutely do that. Okay. And keep yourself a file at home. Have asked me, should they ever go to the media? I've only seen one case where it worked in their favor, and you better have really good documentation proof. The one thing is, he said, she said never works, never works. And sometimes witnesses fold, they get scared, they forget, they're afraid they're going to get retaliated, they're going to lose their job, their benefits. So if you choose to go to the media, I'm telling you, better have it all together, because you could still face retaliations. I like to talk about HR's assistants insights, and I'm going to just glaze over that. The thing is that HR is often part of the management. And in that case, I have been in the past myself, and they're required to keep the leadership apprised of any problems in the workplace. So they have to let the leadership know what's going on. Now, I don't want to bad play all HR people. I've been in HR 32 years, and I know I feel for myself, and I can think of quite a few people that are in HR that are honest and heartfelt. They care about the employer and the employee. And I feel the same way, because I believe both parties, the employer has the right to work in a safe, respectful work environment. But sometimes the HR person may downplay it if they're not honest, or the company wants it to be downplayed. So that's why it's important to document everything by email. And I've said earlier, you know, if you are having problems, you can look a lot of this stuff up online, you know, how to file grievances and such. And if you do face any kind of retaliation, for example, and you filed with the EEOC, the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, now that's only for discrimination, and I'll get into that in a minute. If you do get retaliated against, you can report that, because that's illegal. So I just want to wrap it up saying there's a lot of good people out there. Not everybody in HR is bad. Unfortunately, there's a lot of HR that have their hands tied, and that's quite a shame. Okay, well, we all know what a bully is, and you know, we all know what a narcissistic bully is. I want to touch base on discrimination. Okay, so there's all kind of discrimination classes. I won't cover all of them because I just won't have time for all of them, but I'll just give you some. And the best resource is to go to the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission and just type in eeoc.gov and just put discrimination classes, and it'll come a lot of it, everything from genetics, sex harassment, sexual harassment, sex equal pay, pregnancy, disability, I'm probably race, LGBTQ areas, all that and more will definitely be out there. So one thing that people ask all the time, and they don't know better, is what if they have to sign a forced arbitration, you know, which is an agreement in the company that they won't sue that person, that company. All right, you can Google it yourself, but I'm going to tell you that's a bunch of nonsense. Now, if it's a bullying, harassment, not discrimination, then yes, they may say we do it in-house. We counsel in-house, we take care of it in-house. You never, ever can be kept from reaching out to the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission and filing charges. Also in the state side, they also have areas where you can also file like EEOC charges. And sometimes the states are faster than the government because there's just so many complaints going on. So another one I didn't cover was age and, harassment, which they also call retaliation discrimination. Okay. So one thing to remember is not one size fits all with age. Okay. In some states, it's a younger age than age 40, where it's age discrimination. The best thing to do is, because it's so comprehensive, is, go in and look at the eeoc.gov website. Now, I want to touch base a little bit more about documentation. Again, I settled with about 2 days before my formal hearing with the administrative EEOC judge with only documentation. When I say only documentation, I'm talking about medical records. I'm talking about emails. Anytime I sent an email, I printed it, took it home, had it all nice, neat, and organized. The thing is, you want to do that because should you ever be fired for any reason, and it has to do with retaliation, or you file charges, sexual harassment charges, for example, then you want to have that as evidence. Because a lot of people will try to go and get unemployment. Well, guess what? That can be contested by the company, the organization. And then what happens is there's a mediator comes on with the Employment Security Commission, and they basically hear both sides. So you really want to have your stuff together. When I say have your stuff together, have the documentation so you refer back and say, well, on this date, the following happened. One thing has been around a long time. People say, keep a little black note. No, don't keep a little black note. That means nothing that you wrote down information or data or whatever. I mean, it's good for you to recollect and say, oh yeah, that's what happened that day. But if you have to face an EEOC judge, or, in the civilian sector, litigation, you're trying settlement, you're trying to deal with the Employment Security Commission for unemployment or any other avenue, if you don't have it in writing, it's like it doesn't exist. You have to have proof. So please do that. Do yourself a favor, get a binder, keep it organized. Best thing ever is having it nice and neat. So if you had to ever turn it over or make a copy, always keep a copy for yourself. But if you ever had to turn it over to, for example, an attorney, a lot of attorneys today, if it's a good case, you've got to have this evidence. That's why I talk about have proof. If you have a good case and the employment attorney sees that you've had good notes, when I say notes, I mean good documentation, not notes in a black notebook, that you reached out and asked for reasonable accommodation, for example, because you're disabled and you didn't get it, or they mocked you or something like that. That's stuff the attorney is going to need to be able to fight your case. So please, 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 please document properly. I don't think there can ever be too much documentation. You can always take it out later. So another thing I like to share is Freedom of Information Act. Should you ever need to get records, we do have what's called the Freedom of Information Act. And, for government, you can reach out and get all the records that you need if you end up having to, go into litigation. And, every company, they have internal ways that you can get records and documents and stuff. But anytime you do anything, I'm going to reiterate, and people who know me know I'm not joking when I say email. Don't call somebody and say, how do I get records, blah, blah, blah. You email, you get that point of contact, and, Mr. Smith, Miss Smith, trying to get my records, be very, very brief in what you need. Okay. Now, anytime you're going through any kind of harassment, whether it's bullying, discrimination, the best thing ever is to have good balance, rest, be able to recover from the things that are happening. So I like to talk about healing modalities, because I know myself, it took over a year because I'd been through harassment for over 2 years. So it's important to get good sleep, exercise, eat the best food possible. Really important is to get mental health care if you need it. And we need to get over the stigma of mental health care. I spent 20 years in the Air Force. When I went in 1985, there were 11% women. When I got out, there was double, about 22% women. And to sit there and say, well, I don't want the stigma. Well, what's more important, your health, well-being, or, being crippled maybe for life because of mental health issues? So there's a ton of things you can do. One of them, you can go to a hypnotherapist or a hypnotist. They're the same thing. It's just a hypnotherapist is a clinician. I got certified years ago in hypnosis. It works, reaching the subconscious. You can also hire a coach or a mentor. And if let's say money's an issue, don't let it be an issue. There's a lot of free things out there. All you have to do is Google it. In fact, you can even call the 211 program United Way, just dial 211 on your phone and tell them your needs, and there may be a resource in your community. Another thing I love, love, love is meditation. In fact, I practice it night and day. And meditation doesn't mean you have to sit on a pillow and do the ahs, the ums, or anything like that, or the ohms. But even just relaxing, even if you're having a cup of tea or coffee and you're staring out, watching the birds or something, just get your mind out of that toxic workplace environment thinking. Now, another thing I love, and I practiced this for years, is aromatherapy. I love lavender. I love ying lang. There's geranium. There's so many wonderful essential oils out there that'll help to calm you and relax you, because it's important whether you're in the middle of harassment in the workplace, whether it's done and over with and you're trying to recover. And another thing I love is energy work, Reiki. I've learned how to do that. You can look it up, energy work, and that's very transformational. And I love horticulture therapy, I had to tell you, because when I retired 18 years ago, I got a horticulture degree for fun. And I have to tell you, it's the most favorite of my 4 degrees. Working out in the garden is like, I get in a whole nother world. And if you say, hey, Dawn, I'm not into gardening, that's okay. What is it? What are you into? Are you into golf? Are you into hiking? Do it. Do whatever makes you feel better. And there are a lot of herbal remedies. And I say, get, proper advice, credible advice. Don't just go out there doing anything you want. And, just praying and being still can help you. So I'm going to wrap up and say that I wish I could cover more, but I will give more. And this is coming directly out of my workbook, the first of its kind. I realized that after I was successful in standing up to workplace bullying and discrimination, that share what I learned with other people, because I didn't want to see other people going through what I did. So if you have any questions, please reach out to me. I'm here for you. I'm Dawn Westmoreland, hailing from Asheville, North Carolina. My show is The Empowered Whistleblower. The Empowered Whistleblower is about blowing the whistle on things that need to be talked about. So I hope to see you next time. If you have any questions, reach out to me at my website, dawnwestmoreland.org. Till next time, stay empowered.